Welcome back to Nightstand Coffee. This is episode
10.
10. Wow.
We got here quick.
Yeah, it feels like it.
And I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Todd.
And we're going to talk to you today about expectations.
Yeah, so thanks for being along for the ride. Thanks for sticking with us. I think today's going to be a great conversation.
So the phrase that I use quite a bit when it comes to expectations is unexpressed, unmet expectations.
Yeah.
And I think that we have these a lot. So if we just take those words individually, unexpressed, you haven't told anybody that you have them. They're unmet.
Right.
Because no one's doing it for you.
Yeah.
But you expect it to happen.
Yeah, I can't remember who the quote was attributed to, but it's that uncommunicated expectations are premeditated disappointments.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like you can just already expect that you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Well, and that, because you've not communicated it, or, then 99 times out of 100, the other person isn't going to just automatically do that because we're not mind readers. And so then you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You're setting yourself up for bitterness. You're setting yourself up for,
Well, and so here's how you know if you have unexpressed, unmet expectations. If you find yourself saying, they should have known.
They should have known.
They should have known that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
They should have known that's what I would have expected from them. I shouldn't have to tell them.
Or maybe even you're in a place where you're actually telling your spouse that, well, you should have just known that that's what I needed. Or you should have just known that that's what I wanted.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you catch yourself using that phrase either in thought or in conversation, you have unexpressed, unmet expectations.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think it happens.
Well, and here's the thing. It's your own fault.
Yeah.
You're blaming your spouse. You're blaming your partner.
Yep.
But you've not told them what you wanted.
Right.
It's your fault.
Yeah. Yes.
And we have to reckon with that. We have to reconcile ourselves to that because like I said, most of the time we're blaming the other person. And they've not done anything wrong, right? They haven't done what you expected, but only because they didn't know.
Right.
Well, I can't say only because they didn't know, but
they definitely didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't know. And so you can't hold them to it if they didn't know.
Right. And so now I guess maybe you could come away from, if you've expressed it over and over and over and over and over again, and then you say, you should know that's what I want. Like that may be a little bit different, but you got to make sure that you're expressing it, because if not, it's just not fair. It's not fair to the other one.
Right.
And so oftentimes these are things like, you should have known I would want a present for my birthday.
Yeah.
Or you should have known that I would have expected you to take the trash out. Or you should have known that would make me mad.
Right. Or here's a scenario that I've been thinking through. So let's say that that you leave the house one morning and you say to your husband, I'd really like you to do the dishes today. Right. So you've communicated something to them, right? You've communicated an expectation to them. But you get home and there are dishes in the sink, right? Now, there's a possibility that your husband did the dishes that morning, and those are the dishes that had accrued throughout the day.
Or you have children.
Well, but,
right.
but yeah, and so those are the dishes that have accrued throughout the day because he actually did the dishes, but there are dishes in the sink, or he just hadn't got to it yet and was planning to do it before he went to bed, whatever. Your real expectation was, I want to come home to a clean sink, right? I don't want any dishes to be in the sink when I get home. That was your real expectation, but that's not what you communicated. You communicated, I want you to do the dishes.
Right.
So you're upset when you come home and there are dishes in the sink, but that's not what you communicated to your husband. And so we need to be clear about what it is we're asking for as well.
Right. Well, and a lot of times I think it is tied to tasks. So I think what I've heard women say, and maybe men, but for sure women, like it feels like the task is obvious. It feels like, how do you not notice that this needs to happen? Like an example is like you've got stuff at the bottom of the stairs that clearly needs to go up to the top of the stairs, but nobody picks it up. It's like, you should know that this stuff needs to go upstairs.
Right.
But they might not know, right? Because it may be that you brought it to the stairs because you're about to do something different with it. Like you're needing to leave with it or something.
Yeah. Or maybe they do know that it should be picked up, but they've seen you walk by it 3 or 4 times as well. And so like, well, maybe if they're not going to pick it up, maybe there's a reason that it's there. Right. And so, so if we're not communicating these things, then what happens is it's not that there's a problem with expectation. It's a problem that, number one, it's uncommunicated, or number two, it's unreasonable. Right. So, so if you've walked by it 3 or 4 times and you've not held yourself to the standard of picking it up, why is it fair to you then to hold your spouse to the standard of picking it up?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Unless you're like, maybe your hands are full every time you've gone past it and you can't pick it up.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's not to say that like, because we do this as well. So to follow this same scenario, if it's not my item that's sitting there,
yeah,
then I probably won't pick it up because I'm going to assume, number one, okay, you put it there. And if I move it, you're not going to know where it is. And just to be honest, sometimes we have the attitude, well, that's not mine. I didn't put it there. Why should I pick it up? And not that we should have that attitude, but that's reality. That's real kind of how we think. And so then what I have, whether I'm the husband, and husbands, let's be honest, we probably tend to do this maybe more than our wives do, have an expectation that my wife is going to come behind me and pick up after me. And then when she doesn't, because it's my stuff, well, then I get all, in my feels about it, get all grumpy and grouchy about it. Well, like that's not a reasonable expectation. Now should we be selfless enough, whether it's myself or, whether it's the husband or the wife, should we be selfless enough to pick up the other person's stuff? Absolutely. But should I hold an expectation that says you're going to pick up after me? No.
Yeah.
No. And I think that's where the problem comes in. It's like that I hold the other person to a standard that I'm not holding myself to.
I think that's valid. And so most of this seems like it's around tasks.
I don't think it always is, but
right.
Those are the easy ones for us to kind of, that's the low hanging fruit for sure.
And so like, I do think I hear a lot about like putting the clothes from the washer to the dryer. Right. Or going ahead and folding the towels when you take them out. Like you don't just like move them onto the table and do nothing with them.
Yeah.
Or, I've heard of people taking the wet laundry out and putting it on top of the dryer and like not even putting it in the dryer. Yeah. Or like there's someone like they
don't do that.
Just
don't do that.
Well, and so then, or someone like that, they exit the house by the dryer every day. And so they don't notice if something needs to go from the washer to the dryer.
Yeah.
And like it's a front loader so you can see.
Yeah. Well, so here's maybe something that we need to talk about in regard to this. What if what you grew up with was an environment where one or the other of the spouse did all of the laundry, right? Typically that's going to be the wife, right? I mean, that's traditional gender roles. But that's what you grew up with. So that's the expectation that you brought into the marriage. And the other spouse grew up in a household where both parties were involved in doing the laundry. That's the expectation that they bring into the marriage, right? The problem isn't the expectations. The problem is that you have differing expectations and you've not discussed it. You've not come to, okay, here's what's going to work for us as a couple. Or you're in kind of this standoff where one spouse is going, well, this is my expectation and I am not budging. And the other person's doing the same thing. And then you're just butting heads about it all the time. And you're both bitter and angry. And, the spouse who thinks it should be the other person's job is upset and angry because they feel like they're getting nagged about it all the time. And that's not my job. And the spouse where there's like, we should be sharing this load and responsibility is getting bitter and angry because the other person, doesn't seem to see or appreciate what they're doing and doesn't want to help. And so how do we resolve that kind of conflict?
Well, and so partially it's important to have like premarital counseling and like discuss those things. And
Absolutely.
So there's.
I know a good counselor.
Thank you. I hope that you're talking about me.
I am.
And so I have an assessment that we use from Les and Leslie Parrott called the SYMBIS, which stands for Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And it actually goes through all of those type of things. Like it's like 16 to 18 pages, depending on your situation, like what you have to answer about. And like one of the things that we talk about in that is like who does what.
Yeah.
And so who did what in your original family and who do you expect to do it in your new to be family, right?
Yeah.
And so then I think it's important to have a conversation. And so if you know going into it, like you can kind of avoid some of this stuff. And so I know that I try to talk about unexpressed, unmet expectations and like not to to say that to the person or excuse me, hold them to that without communicating it. I would say too that sometimes we struggle because like we don't want to be mean. So let's say that you have an expectation about like that you didn't do the dishes. We'll just pick that one. Okay. So the dishes didn't get done, but then you're like, I don't want to talk about this because it just feels selfish on my part because I'm expecting him to do something. And so, there's this internal conflict between do I express my frustration in this or to just like stuff it and try to get over it.
Right.
Well, stuffing and trying to get over it usually ends in resentment.
Yeah. Well, and expressing it in an angry or moody or whatever way is not healthy either, right? And we default typically to one or the other of those rather than a healthy response, and we have to learn to do it properly, right? Because it's good for both of us when we do it properly. When we do it in the right way, it opens doors of communication. It opens doors of understanding. We come to agreement, and but it's not always easy to do it that way. It's not always easy to say, hey, I'm feeling some kind of way about these dishes and I know I might not have said it this morning, or I know that there's an expectation that I didn't communicate, and I need you to know that like this makes me feel stressed out when I come home and there are dishes in the sink. Right.
Well, and so I think it's important too to like assess yourself about your communication when you're feeling frustrated. So I have worked to, when I get irritated on this type of thing, to stop and go, wait, did I communicate this on the front end? Like, is my frustration and anger fair? Right. Yeah. Because like, have I actually said, hey, this is what I wanted you to do and you didn't do it? With kids or friends or anybody, like I take the moment to go, okay, so I have an expectation, but did I communicate that so they know? Yeah. If I haven't communicated that, then I need to own that and go, okay, so I don't have a right to be angry. I don't have a right to be frustrated because it's like my expectation didn't get met because I didn't tell anybody what my expectation was.
Yeah. Well, and it's important too for us to recognize, like, am I feeling some kind of way about this because of this, or is this really about something else? Did someone just dump on me at work today? Was there something else that was going on that am I bringing frustration and stress home with me already? And this, is like the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. So it's not really this thing. It's a bunch of other things that have piled up. Am I tired? Am I hungry? Is there something physiologically that's going on? There are all kinds of other factors that we need to pay attention to and be aware of that may be influencing how we're reacting to a situation. And how we react is not a reflection of whether or not the thing is good or bad or important or not important, right? Like those dishes in the sink, there may be a day that you got home and it wouldn't bother you at all for there to be dishes sitting there in the sink, and you'd go, hey, you just say, hey, can you take care of these dishes? And it wouldn't be a thing at all. Right. That's Tuesday. But on Thursday, the reaction to the dishes for both of you could be really different. And you have to recognize those factors, because if we don't, then we make the whole situation about the dishes in the sink, and it's not about the dishes in the sink.
Well, and so I'm trying to think of like other examples of expectations. Like maybe it's that you want your spouse to come do something with you. Like my friend Sarah and her husband Melvin's really into the Derby. Sarah's not so much, but I know that Melvin really wants Sarah to come to the Derby,
because
right?
that's his world, and he wants her to be a part of his world because he loves her.
Right. And so that he needs to express that.
Right.
Clearly he has, because I know about it, right? As a friend. So I know that he wants her to come to those things. So, are we expressing what we want? Are we telling our spouse what it is that we want from that person?
And I think, too, this is something I keep thinking about as we're having this conversation. I think we need to understand the difference between standards and expectations.
Okay.
So standards are a really good thing, and expectations aren't bad either. But we need to have standards. So maybe like you had standards, like a list of things that you wanted in a partner, right? We share the same beliefs, or at least very similar beliefs and values. They have a strong work ethic. They have a good job. They have a good sense of humor. Those are standards. Those are things that you're looking for in a mate and in a spouse. And maybe your spouse met all of those standards, and maybe they still meet all of your standards. But that's different than an expectation for a future performance. Mm-hmm. And we need to recognize that, man, like those standards are the thing that we can lose sight of the fact that they meet the standard when they may not meet an expectation in a given moment. Does that make sense?
I don't know that I followed that. So give it to me again.
Well, so the point I'm trying to make is maybe you've got a really good spouse in terms of they meet all the standards. They checked off all the boxes, mm-hmm. and they still do those things. Like they're a hard worker. Mm-hmm. They take good care of you. They are willing to do things when you ask them. They talk about the things of God with you, mm-hmm. or, the things that are important to you. They'll go to your stuff, even though they may not love it, all of that kind of thing. But we can lose sight of just how well our spouse matches up with us, and the fact that they meet those standards and work hard to do that when they fail on an arbitrary expectation, or maybe it's not even arbitrary, but uncommunicated expectation. And then,
are you basically saying don't throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Yeah. Remember who they are. Pay attention. Yes. Pay attention to the good. Celebrate the good. I think we've talked about this on the show before. The thing where it was like, hey, let's not talk about the things I didn't do. Let's talk about the things I did on that to-do list. And not to say that there's never a time to talk about the things that didn't get done.
Right.
But we can tend to focus on those things, mm-hmm. When there are a whole lot of really good things, and sometimes way more important things, mm-hmm. that are happening that are really good.
Yeah. Well, and so I have an example in counseling. So I had a couple that I was working with, and I gave the assignment for the wife for the next 2 weeks to tell the husband something positive about them every day. And I said, if you want to go and write down 14 things so that you already have it ready, but every day I want you to leave a note for them about what you think about them. It was critical to their relationship in a positive way.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so she did that, but she forgot a few days. She forgot to do it. So then the couple come back for their next session, and he is mad and just frustrated and angry. And I'm like, what is going on? And so it took a little bit for us to peel the onion, but so we got to the bottom of it. And essentially he had an expectation that she was really going to say nice things to him, because he felt beat down essentially in their relationship and undervalued. And so he was thinking she was going to really say, you're great. This is what I think, he was going to be built up.
Right.
And so, but then she forgot a couple of days. And so then he felt super undervalued.
Yeah, and so he was like, I'm not even important enough to you for you to remember to say one good thing about me.
Right. And so then for the wife, she's like, okay, yeah, this was an assignment, but I didn't know it was life or death. I didn't know it was that big a deal. Mm-hmm. Right. And so then we had to kind of unwrap that.
Yeah.
And really understand what his needs were. And talking about how you need to express what you need,
Yeah.
right? And not to like dismiss his feelings or go, well, that's dumb. I like you. I love you. You're great. Why is this such a big deal? Right? Like, not to dismiss those things. And so I think, we spent time on unexpressed, unmet expectations. He definitely had some expectations that went unmet, but he had not expressed them.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes, not every time, but sometimes, like in a case like that, those unexpressed expectations come from a place of insecurity. Mm-hmm. It's not always easy, especially when it's about how we feel, right? About our emotional state, about like, that husband, how hard might it be for that husband? And I don't know them, so I don't, but how hard can it be sometimes for us to be vulnerable enough to tell our spouse, hey, I need to hear you tell me why you love me. Mm-hmm. I need to hear you say good things. I need to, how hard is it for us sometimes to say, hey, I feel really beat down and I need some encouragement from you. That's not easy to say. And especially, and I can't speak for women, but I know for men, that's a tough thing to do sometimes because we feel an expectation that we should be strong already. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel good to admit, hey, I need some encouragement.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so then I would say these unexpressed, unmet expectations are the breeding ground for watering someone else's grass. Right?
Yeah.
And so,
if there's somebody else that's coming along and telling you how good you are and
mm-hmm.
how much they appreciate what you do and how,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we're referring to like spending time with someone else. So you can go listen to the other episode about watering your grass and talking about how you're like pouring into the wrong person, essentially.
Yeah, this isn't a lawn care
podcast. This is not. But it's a great visual, though, like tending to your grass. So like it really can breed discontentment and then can make it easier to let someone in your life that doesn't need to be in your life.
Yeah.
Or at least to let them into a spot in your life that they shouldn't be in.
Well, and that should be something that we take ownership of as partners too. Is like, look, we all need that. Mm-hmm. We all need encouragement. We all need someone to speak life into us, to speak blessing over us. And man, I don't want, not that I don't want anybody else to ever encourage you, but I don't want anybody else encouraging you more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to ever feel like that need is not going to be met from me, or to ever feel like there's a deficit there so that when somebody else starts encouraging you,
mm-hmm.
That
it doesn't
that
like shiny and get my
thirsty.
attention.
Yeah, that you're so thirsty for that, that you
just suck it up and absorb it all. Yeah.
And so ask yourself, am I speaking life over my spouse?
Mm-hmm.
Am I the person that they can count on for encouragement and for blessing and for life or am I sucking the life out of them?
Yeah.
And that's not to say that we'll never have a bad day or say a cross word. I mean, perfection is not what we should expect from our spouse,
mm-hmm.
right? Or from ourselves even. But man, we need to have due diligence to and be
committed
cognizant of and committed to speaking well of one another, speaking blessing, speaking life, speaking,
Yeah. Well, and so I also want to say this, that I don't foresee or really anticipate any spouse that doesn't want to make their partner happy.
Yeah.
Like, at your core, if
we
you
don't start there.
Sure. You probably you kind of go to your own corner kind of the boxing ring and you're waiting sometimes for the other person to do something nice first. But like at your core, if you isolate someone and say, do you want to do things that make your husband happy or that make your wife happy? Or do you want to make your spouse happy? Like, I don't know that people would say no.
Right.
If they say no, then we got a bigger issue. But
I was going to say, when we get to the place where we just don't care anymore, like,
mm-hmm.
If the answer to that question is no, it's typically because we've gotten to a place where we just don't feel like it's possible.
Okay.
Right? I can't make them happy, so why should I try anymore?
But there's still a desire to want to. You want them to be happy with you.
Yeah, deep down.
Nobody wants their spouse to not like them.
Right.
Or to like be disappointed in them or to not. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you come home and those dishes are in the sink, to go back to that scenario. When you come home and those dishes are in the sink, your husband didn't do that. Your wife didn't do that because they don't want you to be happy.
Yeah. Well, but it does feel like sometimes that they do that because they're not being considerate of you.
Well, and maybe they're not. And that's another conversation, right? Yeah, maybe that's another episode. That's another conversation to be had.
And just for the record, I'm not a dishes Nazi.
No.
Okay, let's be fair. Now, I will say that is the one.
Honestly, probably to a fault, neither of us are dishes Nazis.
Yeah, well, we eventually get in here and do the dishes, kids.
If you come to our house, it's likely there are dishes.
They're
in the
very
sink.
likely. It is likely, well, especially because you come in the back door, which is right by the kitchen
by the
sink.
sink.
And you're first thing you see is great, welcome to the Stanleys. We need to do our dishes.
Yeah. we do the dishes. Just
the sink's usually full when we do them.
Yeah,
that's probably true,
and that's okay.
Okay, it has to be because that's how we roll, right? So you have to love us anyway.
We live in our house
for real, real. So, but I want to make sure we say that though, that we're not. No one's setting out to hurt someone else. No one. Hopefully, I mean, if you are intentionally doing things or not doing things just to make your spouse mad or to go, I'm not doing that for them, because. Well, I don't know. I think people do that though, but there's something going on. If you are I'm refusing to do that, there's something going on. So there needs to be a conversation. And so the homework that I want to assign would be sit down with your spouse and ask them, are there things that you expect that I'm not doing? Is there anything that you want me to be doing that I'm not doing that you've not told me about? Or even maybe you have told me about, let's review the list of things that you really need me to be doing or want me to be doing to help our marriage be solid.
Yeah, and come into that conversation with a couple of things. Number one, come into that conversation with, saying I'm not going to be triggered here, right? This is not going to devolve into an argument. This is not, that's not what this is about.
This is fact finding.
Right. And then number two, come into that conversation with the knowledge and the understanding that I may need to adjust my expectations.
Okay.
Right? On both sides, because maybe you have opposing expectations. And so let's say, for example, one of you has an expectation that every Friday we are going to stay home, right? We're going to be home together, and maybe we'll work in the yard, and maybe we'll watch a movie, and but whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
You're a homebody, and your expectation is every Friday we're just going to stay in, and the other person's expectation is every Friday we're going to go out, right? So both of you need to adjust your expectations when you come, and so that conversation needs to include those two things. Number one, this is not going to become an argument. This is strictly fact finding, right? And number two, we may need to adjust our expectations.
I think that's good, and it doesn't need to evolve into a fight about what you're not doing for me.
Yeah.
Or either side. Because if you're coming...
expectations are a lot like opinions and a lot like belly buttons, right? Everybody's got one. And,
And that's a different...
That's a different hole.
That's a different hole.
Yeah. Sometimes they stink. Yeah.
Great. Okay, great. Anyway, you're the one this time that said weird things, not me. So, but yes, and it needs to be your goal is to solve it, not to get defensive.
Yeah.
And so you need to consider delivery, consider how you're saying this is an expectation that I have that's not being met. Consider how you would want to be told if your spouse was feeling that way about you. How would you want them to come to you? And so communicate that.
Yeah. Well, and two, sometimes maybe it's three. Who knows what number we're on? Look, sometimes some expectations are more important than others.
Yeah.
And so maybe you need to have a conversation about what is prioritized as well. And maybe there are some expectations that you have that just are unreasonable. It's, they're just unreasonable. And so I'll give you an example for that. So we can bring into marriage and maybe carry for a long time sometimes an expectation that my spouse is going to make me happy. That is not a reasonable expectation. It's not, right? They're going to do things that make you happy sometimes, but they are not responsible for your happiness.
True.
Right? That is a massive load for someone to carry, and it's going to crush them. That's something that, like, number one, we shouldn't have an expectation that I'm going to be happy all the time, because happy is about circumstances, and it's not the same thing as joy, right? And joy, like that kind of abiding contentment, and like that only comes from God.
Yeah.
And so if there is a need and a desire in your heart that God is supposed to fulfill, but you have the expectation that your spouse is going to fulfill that, man, that's going to set one of you up for disappointment and the other one up for just being crushed by the weight of it.
Well, and I want to add too that, like, so maybe it's that you have your expectations come from your original household, but your expectations could also come from how things were before you were married versus what they are after you are married.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, a lot of times, people do things differently when they're dating.
Yes.
Or they'll even commit to things while they're dating, but then once they're married, they're like, meh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So, like, the one that comes to mind is, like, agreeing to go to church. Like, yeah, church is going to be important to us when we're dating. Like, you go all the time when you're dating. Yep, I'll do it. Then you're married and like, nah, I don't want to do that.
Well, here's what I would say to that. You know, maybe there aren't a lot of single people listening to this, but if you're single and you're listening to this, if they weren't going to church before you started dating them, they're not going to go to church after you're married.
Well, wait a minute. That's kind of hard. I would say this: if, like, they're not willing to go on their own, if they're not,
well, that's what I mean.
Well, hold on, but like while you're dating, like, you know, like maybe you're out of town and they're like, well, I'm going to just stay home because you're not here to go with me. That would be a red flag for me. But for someone to say, well, okay, yeah, I'll go. You're not here, but I'm going to go still. Like, I want to leave room and space for the person can come to Jesus and then start going to church while you're dating. So I want to leave space for that. That's just not a black and white thing.
Well, okay. I'm going to hold a harder line on that than you do, because look, if I am not a fan of missionary dating.
Okay. I'm not suggesting. I don't think I'm talking about missionary dating.
Well,
I want to leave space for people to get better while they are dating.
Well, sure. I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
Okay.
What?
I'll just say this then. Don't start dating someone that doesn't already. If you are a follower of Jesus, don't start dating someone who's not a follower of Jesus.
Okay.
Right? And, you know, don't. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will.
If God is not a priority, if God is not a priority in their life when you meet them, He's not going to be a priority in their life after you marry them.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's not the same scenario as somebody who is a new believer and, you know, and you meet them like that.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. It's like there could be scenarios where that's not exactly completely true, but yes, they need to have their own relationship with Jesus before you get married.
Right. But that goes back to the idea of standards versus expectations.
Okay.
Right? A standard in your life needs to be that this person, we share similar values, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we share a common vision for life. We share a common vision for, you know, like.
Well, at the FCA retreat I was at over Memorial Day weekend, they were talking about in a relationship series about that you should be finding someone that's running at the same pace alongside you in the same direction towards Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're not going in the same direction, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, well, I mean, Proverbs talks about that. It says, how can two walk together unless they're going to the same place?
I don't think it's Proverbs, but it is.
It not? Maybe it's Ecclesiastes. Anyway, what?
Okay.
I can't remember.
I think it's Hosea, but
is it?
It's because I've thought it was Proverbs for the longest time. Anyway,
is it Hosea?
I think it is. Do you want me to look it up real quick while you keep talking? I'll look it up.
You can if you want.
Keep talking.
But Scripture says,
okay.
right?
Okay.
How can two walk together unless they are going in the same direction, right? And so, man, like. Don't have an expectation that you're going to.
Oh, we're both wrong. It's Amos.
Amos. Well,
it's Amos.
It was
3:3.
a minor prophet.
Yeah.
You were
okay.
closer than me.
Yeah.
Amos 3:3. I'll never forget it now.
Okay. Okay. So it's important that you're finding someone with the same. Yes, absolutely. Same values, same goals that you're running alongside. But that could be a challenge if things are different in your dating life than they are once you get married.
Yes.
And so, like, I want you need to be prepared for that, and like asking yourself if you're dating, like, okay, so. What is it that I'm willing to continue, You know, if I'm doing this just to get the girl, that's not good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then,
or vice versa.
Yeah. And so then you need to be able to communicate, you know, hey, like I had an expectation that this is what we would be doing because this is what was happening when we were dating.
Yeah.
You know, and that's shifted and changed. You know, can we talk about that? And
well, and too, like, so look, say you're a gym rat and you're dating someone who doesn't go to the gym and that's not important to them.
Yeah.
Right. It would be an unreasonable expectation to go, okay, well, once we get married, we're going to go to the gym together every day. No, you're not.
Right.
No, you're not.
Right.
And so if that's important to you, if that's an expectation that you have, either you have to go, okay, there are things that are more important to me than that, and I'm going to let go of that expectation. Or you need to not be with that person.
Yeah.
Right? Which is not a marriage conversation, right? If you're married...
Right. You don't get to get divorced because your wife won't go to the gym.
Exactly. If you're married, you have to drop that expectation. That's just unreasonable and it's not, But for those of you who are in dating relationships, look, like, recognize those things for what they are. And either it's something that you let go of and go, that's not the most important thing. And so I'm going to... These are my standards and these are my expectations, and expectations can be adjusted.
Right.
Standards don't change. Right. And so, so either you let go of that or you go, you know what? That's a deal breaker for me. And as great as you are, this is, we don't need to be together.
So I want to kind of set the stage for homework and then we'll let you get off of here.
Okay.
So if you're listening with your spouse, great. You're both getting the same information at the same time. If you're not, you can encourage your spouse to listen to this episode.
We would love that.
We would love that. And then, but if that's not the case and there's one listener and one that's not, then I think two things need to happen for the listener. You need to stop and ask yourself, okay, what is it that I expect that I've not communicated?
Yeah.
And then you need to be able to and willing to ask your spouse, what is it that I'm not doing that you expect of me? Now, you need to if your spouse isn't prepared for the conversation, because like you've had a chance to listen to the episode and reflect on it, if you show up to ask that question, your spouse may not be ready to answer it.
Yeah.
So you need to give them time to think about it.
Right.
And say, hey, I would like to have a conversation about expectations. Go listen to this episode so you know what I'm talking about. Or this is what I got out of this, and so this is where I'm coming from. Can you be thinking on this? And like in a couple days, I'm going to come back and ask you about this, right? That's one way to handle it. Or you have the conversation and then you leave it open-ended to say, I know I didn't give you enough time to really prep for this conversation, so maybe something comes to mind later. I want you to feel comfortable bringing this back up to me. I'm going to be open to you bringing this conversation back up so that we can revisit it if you didn't have all the information when we started the conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Because and this is probably, I don't know if this is a Jen Stanley issue or not, but I don't think any conversation really has to be over. Like I don't think that there's never that you can't bring something back up. Like people say, well, so much time has passed, I don't think I want to bring it up. Well, I don't operate that way, because like if there's still something lingering, I think it's okay to bring it up. Maybe there might be some exceptions to that, but as a general rule, I think you could say like, hey, I still feel this way. I need to talk about these feelings.
And be willing to acknowledge. And I recognize that maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should have already been able to resolve this. Maybe, but I haven't, and I need your help.
Right.
Right.
Well, and it's not this, again, we're getting on other topics, but it's like, it's not you don't bring it back up because like you want to berate the person, but it's more about like, I need to finish processing this so I can put it down, anyway, we can talk about that later too.
Yeah.
So homework, have a conversation, ask the questions, do some self-assessment, and then have a conversation with your spouse. I think that's huge.
Do the dishes.
That too. Okay. See you later.
See you guys.